Well, hello there. How are you? Usually there's some other guy like standing right here talking next to me. A little shorter, you know, darker skin. But he's not here. This one's on me. Last time you got him on the V-bar. This time it's me. It's time for the CGY750 from Futaba. So, today we're going to be talking about this little guy. All the fun that comes in this little black box, the CGY750. Now this is the first Flybarless controller that I actually fell in love with. I tried other controllers in the past, they will be nameless, and they just never quite worked for me. I always felt like they were just lagging a little bit or just felt really weird to me and I could never connect with it. So about a year ago, right at this time, right about after IRCHA, Futaba told me, hey, we've got a Flybarless controller coming, I think you're really going to like it. So then around October, they sent me a first version, and I absolutely fell in love with it right off the bat. So, why do I like this thing so much? I like it so much because, number one, the setup is easy. I don't know why some people think it's really difficult. I set up my first one in like 20 minutes, really, 20 minutes. And I don't think it's that hard. So maybe they can't press the buttons. I don't know. Second of all, I think it really flies well. The biggest thing that they wanted it to feel like was they wanted it to actually feel like a helicopter. You know, they didn't want it to feel like a computer was flying it. So they did make it feel like a flybar. That's what we've been talking about. So what do I mean like a flybar? Well, let's just say around center it doesn't feel very, very soft. It feels like the control response is very, very solid right in the center. There's not that much expo, if you will. And then as you start to give inputs out through your full range of travel, it's a very linear motion, a lot like a flybar is. As to where other controllers intentionally is softer around center and then they really speed up in the corners. Hey, it's just a different feel. It just depends how you like it. The other reason I like it, it's from Futaba. Those guys are very reliable. I really haven't had too many problems with this thing. I've had a few issues here and there, but after all the hours of flying that I've done, it's no more than any other gyro that I've ever had. You know, I haven't had too many issues with that. So today, we're going to show you what's in the box. We're going to show you setup. We're going to show you some advanced setup. We're going to show you how to update your CGY750. I'm going to show you some flying tips and tricks, how to really dial it in there. And it should be a good time. It should be pretty useful. Now, if you saw the video that I took about a year ago, last October, I was sitting on the back of my truck on a beautiful fall day in South Carolina. This video is going to take that one, but just go a lot more in depth. I hope to just teach you everything that I know about the 750. And that's not everything. If you still want to learn more, I'm sure you can email the guys over at Futaba and they can tell you all the things that you need to know about it. But I'm going to show you everything that I know, everything that I know that'll help you fly better with it, and everything that'll help you set it up better. So let's get going on. First, we're going to show you what is in the box. SmackTalk, baby. Episode, what's this? Something. Play the intro. Alright, now it's time to show you guys what is in the box. Alright, so it's a nice stylish little, iPhone sort of box here that Futaba gives you. It's really nice. It's a really nice package. So you take it out. First thing you're going to notice is the manual. Now, I've heard some different things on the manual. Some people are crazy about it. Some people absolutely hate it. I read it through about one time, and then after that, I never really looked at it again. If you really, really hate the manual, watch my setup video. Watch this one, and you'll be fine. We don't really need that. Cool. All right, next, they give you a bunch of stickers. Stickers are great. Everybody likes stickers. If you really want to play a good prank on everyone, on someone, you know, that you just want to give a hard time, peel off the back to this and put this whole sticker set on their canopy. I did that to Doc Wing and he absolutely loved me for it. We then get a quick install guide here with some other little flow charts and stuff. These will help you out, especially if there's any updates. These will let you know if there's been any updates to your CGY750. So you can always take a look at them. And lastly, we have what you guys have been looking for. So first we have right here the actual brain itself. The brain itself is very simple. It's got your ports on the right, and then on the bottom here there's a positive and negative on this side and a positive and negative on this side. This is going to help you select through your menus. You then have the sensor. This is the little tiny sensor, very, very, very small, with a very generous length wire. Very, very long. So you can mount this on the tail of your helicopter and run it up to the front if you wish. We then have the sensor. This is the RPM sensor. This is very similar to the one that used to be used with GV1s, but they've really made the case a lot stronger. It's kind of a one-piece case now. So for those of you who've been in this for a while, the GV1 Governor, this thing is holding up a lot better than those sensors ever did. Now, if you have a GV1, you can still use the same sensor. It's just fine. So this is for the Governor portion if you're running a nitro. If you're running an electric, and let's say your electric has its own Governor mode, you won't need this. And like I said, here is the brain box. Very, very small. Everything's tiny. So then we're going to go into the box and they give us a few more goodies. In here we have a cable, a single cable right here. This is going to be used for your S-Bus. This is going to connect your receiver to the S-Bus port within the 750. You then have a poker tool. You don't need a computer. You don't need any wires. You don't need anything. The only thing you need is this poker tool to set up the whole CGY750. And also they give you some plugs if you're not using any empty channels. It'll help tighten up your wiring. And lastly, they give you the all-important tape. This tape is excellent, and we're going to get into that in a little bit when I start talking about setup. So that's what's in the box. There's a few different versions that you can get of the CGY750. I believe there's two. One is just a CGY750 with no RPM sensor. So if you're flying just electric, you can opt for this one. And then if you're flying nitro and you want the RPM sensor with the magnets, yeah, of course, then you can just order that one. That one's the normal one. And I forgot to mention that in here they give you the magnets as well to glue into your fan. So that's what's in the box here. They really did a nice job with the packaging, nice and small and compact. So now we're going to get on to the setup of the CGY 750. Thumbs up. So let's do setup right now. Here I've got my 90 size nitro. This is the Whiplash. Now we're going to show you mounting the sensor and what kind of different foam tapes and pads you're going to need. And we're going to show you how to plug in everything, and then I'm going to show you the setup. So unfortunately I will be zooming into here and you won't be able to look at me and make fun of me the whole time. So we're going to zoom in here and let's do some setup. Yay! Okay, so before we get into setup, I want to show you exactly what you're going to be plugging in here on the right side. So at the top, you see a big bus where it says gyro. This is where your CGY750 is going to go in. It's got a nice solid connector in it so that when you plug it in, it can't pull out. You can see there's a little tab right here. So that's really, really nice. Your RSEN, this is going to be your governor sensor. So if we want to take our RPM sensor here, which is this little guy, you can plug that right in. Now also, Futaba offers a backplate sensor, and there's also a mod we can do to a Spectrum backplate sensor that I'm going to show you guys. You can just plug that right into there. Next we have the S-Bus cable. That's going to be our red cable that they gave us, and this is going to go simply from the S-Bus channel to the receiver S-Bus channel. Then there's your aileron, elevator, pitch, throttle, and rudder servos. Very, very simple. Just so CCPM, you can plug in aileron and pitch wherever you want to. Elevator, make sure you plug in the elevator servo correctly. Then you're going to have your throttle. If it's an electric, the throttle channel is going to be empty, and then you plug in your rudder servo. Simple as that. So now we're going to put on a helicopter, fire it up, and I'm going to show you how you set this guy up. Now we're going to talk about mounting the sensor on your model. Now, if you can look here closely, no way. It's actually the tape that they supplied. Yes, it is, and it works great. This tape is awesome. It's very, very thin. I haven't really been able to find any other tape that's this thin. So the way the 750 works is the dampening is done internally. This means that you can hard mount the 750 to your model and it'll work just fine. That's the beauty of it. This is why there tends to not be as much bounciness or wobble issues or anything kind of associated with sensor dampening and vibration. So they really did a killer job with this. You can mount it forward, backwards, upside down. It's very small, as you can see here. We made this tray on the Whiplash to be able to accept something like a Total G, which is a very big unit. And this thing takes up maybe a quarter of it, so it's tiny, you can see that. It's got plenty of cord, but here I'm only going to the front, so I really don't need all that. So as you can see here, on the right side is the actual amp box itself with everything plugged in. And then on the left side here, I've got my receiver. Now for receivers, for the CGY750, you must run an S-Bus compatible receiver. This is just how it works. There's another way to do that, as we'll get into later, but all you Futaba users right now, just run an S-Bus receiver and it's so easy. So as you can see right there, on the top of the receiver, there's the red cable that says the S-Bus port, and that goes into the S-Bus on my 750. Wonderful, done, beautiful. So the R6203SB is an amazing receiver. I've been using this on all of my models, nitro, gas, electric, anything. The beauty of it is the fact that it's tiny, it can handle high voltage, it can handle up to a straight 2-cell LiPo, lightweight, doesn't take up much real estate, and it's nice. You really don't need all those channels. Now we can remap some of the channels too to put in things like a switch glow. Heck, even my Nightfly system, the Dalcon, that needs a channel. So the beauty of S-Bus is the fact that you can remap it to get everything in there. So as you can see there, I put switch glow on my channel 3 and it ended up working just fine. So before we get into programming the CGY750, we're going to be showing you some radio setup in order to ensure that when you plug in the 750, it's pretty much going to be as plug and play as possible. So let's do radio setup, then we're getting into this guy. So now we're going to talk about the radio setup. So here I'm using a Futaba 8FG. Even this has been upgraded to the Super, I guess. You can go online and upgrade that for free. And why am I using the 8FG? The 8FG is my favorite radio at the moment. I've only ever really used 3 radios, a Futaba 9C, a 12Z, and an 8FG. And so far, this guy is the best. Why is it great? It's great because it's relatively inexpensive. I think it's in the $400 and some range. It has been updated to have, I believe it's like 12 channels, and then you've got 2 digital ones. More than enough channels that you need. You can use that, you know, in an S-Bus environment. So these are used with S-Bus receivers. Sticks feel great. Very powerful, lots of switches here, the screen's great, battery lasts forever, backlit screen, just so many features. This is why I love this radio. This thing rocks. So what I've done was I created a new model, and let's take a look. Let's get this thing ready to accept a CGY750. So let's zoom in here. Alright, wonderful. So you can see I've got my new model. This is called New 2. And now we're going to be setting up the new model. So the biggest thing that you want to make sure of that I may not have pointed out last time on my video is you want to make sure that it's in multi-2 right there. You want to make sure that guy's in multi-2. If it's not multi-2, it's not going to work with a CGY750. So that's rule number 1. Okay, now we're going to get into our programming. Now as you can see here, I'm not doing anything special with dual rates or expo or anything. The expo can actually be put in the unit. I'm going to show you how to do that. Either we're going to put it all in the unit, or we're going to put it all in the radio. Seems like when I kind of put some in the radio and some in the unit, it just flies a little goofy. So let's try that out. Let's see, I didn't do anything really crazy. The only thing that I did do, this is something that a friend from Australia showed me. Stuart showed me this. He good buddies with our friend James Dargy down there. He showed me this, and it's a really cool way to set it up. So let me show you. So what I did was I created idle up 1 and idle up 2 on switch E. That's just my normal idle up switch. Now what I also did was I took idle up 3 and I put that here on switch D. You can see switch, it's on D right there. What that's going to allow us to do is keep all of our conditions the same for programming, but it's going to allow us to make idle up 3 that normal mode. We're going to use that for tracking the model. So I'll show you how that works. So let's scroll over here to the gyro portion. Okay, so the way it works is you've got your screens right here. So right now I'm in normal mode, nothing crazy. So if I were to lift up and turn the helicopter on right now, my rudder would show 37% gain, my aileron would show 50% gain, and my elevator would show 50% gain. Wonderful. So let's go into it. Now, the rudder. I use my rudder on a switch. So what I want it to be is that when my switch, I use my switch F, which is the back left switch. You can see switch F right here. When the switch is back, it's in heading hold. When I flip the switch up, it's in normal mode. This is how I track my tail. And I'll show you that when we go fly. So right now I set it to 37% heading hold just for fun. It's a good number just to take a look at. Most gyros you'll kind of be around here on the 750. You can play with your gains, but that's about where you're going to be. You can also go to switch position number 2, which is when I flip that switch up, switch F up, you can see it's turned on in normal mode now. And I put that at 38 just so you can see kind of where I'm looking at. So if we go here, right now it says active number 1. So let's go to switch position number 1. You can see it's AVCS at 37%. Wonderful. Now, let's go into our gyro 2 and gyro 3, the aileron gain and the elevator gain. Once again, this is all controlled from the radio. You don't need to plug a computer in, you don't need to do anything. So let's go into aileron. So I set it on conditions now. So in normal, wonderful, it's on at heading hold 50%, great. So now let's go into idle up 1, 60%. Yeah, that seems about right. Maybe you're running a lower head speed. This is where the Futaba radio and the whole setup really comes in handy because you can select it all based on the conditions. So you can make a really low head speed in normal mode and a really high head speed in idle up 1 and idle up 2, and you can set the gains accordingly so that you don't get a head speed wobble. This is really, really cool. So we're going to go back into the aileron. I clicked out of that by accident. So we've got idle up 1 at 60 and idle up 2 at 69. Wonderful. So I can go back here to my main screen of the gyro. So you can see that's in idle up 2 right now. So if I go to, let's see, if I go into normal, you can see it's at 50. If I go into idle up 1, it's at 60. Idle up 2, it's at 69. Wonderful. So you set them all that way. You can set your aileron and elevator gains differently. Usually what I've seen for gains, I've seen them all over the place. If a guy's running a really good servo like a Futaba brushless 255 high voltage, something that's a really, really nice servo like that, their gains are going to be up in the 60s to 70s, heck, even 80s and above, depending on what kind of flying you're doing. I've seen some guys with 50s running in the 30s to 40s on their gains. It just depends. It depends how it's mounted on plastic or carbon. It depends on everything. The head dampening, the geometry. Pretty much you just want to get, the rule of thumb is you want to get as high of a gain as possible in order to make sure that the helicopter feels the best. When the gain's higher, to me, it feels a little bit more locked in. Some people think if it's too high, it'll feel too locked in. So you'll just have to play with it. But for the most part, that's really all you need to know about the gains, just how to set that up. And then the last thing that I didn't show you in the gains here is how do we go to that idle up 3. So I'm going to flip that switch here, and you can see that idle up 3. So I can go in, for instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here, where it says idle up 3, I'm going to turn that to normal mode. And then I'm going to go to gyro 3, which is elevator. I'm going to turn idle up 3 to normal mode as well. Now when it comes time to set it up on the bench and it comes time to fly it, what we're going to do is we're going to take the swash plate out of heading hold and put it into normal mode. So the rudder's still heading hold, for instance, but the aileron and the elevator are normal mode. This allows you to perfectly get your swash plate level. This will, when you put your swash plate level on, you're going to flick that switch down, whatever switch that might be, you're going to flick that down. That's going to put it in normal mode, and you know there's not any sort of gyros working against you. Then when we go outside to actually test it, we're also going to flip that down into normal mode, and we're going to track it just like that. So we've got that. Now let's go into the governor part here. Let's get out of this. Governor. Now I haven't even set this up yet either. So we can just do it based on conditions once again. So in normal mode, for instance, I'm going to select this. We're going to turn it active. So normal mode. Okay. Right now I'm in idle up 3, so we'll get out of that. Great, I'm in normal. I'm going to set it on RPM, and I'm just going to set this to, I don't know, 1700 for my whiplash. Great. Then we're going to go into idle up 1. We'll turn that on, and we'll go to 1850. Okay, and we'll do the same for idle up 2, and we'll set that. I'm running like 1930. That's about where I run on nitros. 19, depending on your gearing, 1930, 1900, 1940, somewhere in there. That's been working out really well for me. And that's it. That's all you have to do for your governor. Done. So you can see which condition it's on. It's super, super, super simple. And the beauty of Futaba is the 1700, 1850, 1940 will match up perfectly with your CGY750 when we first plug it in. So that's about all we're going to do on the radio right here to accept the 750. There's nothing special. I do want to point out one thing, that in here for the model type, let's see, where is it? The model type, I put it in as H1. It has to be an H1, which is normal helicopter mode. All the mixing's done inside. So let's fire up the 750, and we're going to get going on there. And alas, we have come to the coolest part of the episode. The reason why you guys all came here. This is how you set up your CGY750. Now, if you guys came here to expect me to tell you some sort of secret or something new that really came out or anything special that you haven't heard before, sorry, you're not going to find it. The way I set it up is the same way I showed you about a year ago on YouTube for free. But there's a few more things that I want to get into here that I might not have been able to cover. So I turn on my radio, I've got my program. Let's fire it up and see what we can do. So it does its awesome little backflip thingy. Does some 3D before you even turn it on. So wonderful. So now you can see on here, you can see it cycling through my gains. Now I've got my gains set on my transmitter just as I showed to set them, but I've got different numbers because this is my model. So I'm 49% on rudder, 65 on aileron, 71 on elevator. So I haven't calibrated anything. This is just how it comes stock. This is just the way it goes. So it's wonderful. You can also see my voltage is 5.2 volts. This is because I'm running a Scott Gray reactor, and that gives out 5 volts to everything. So let's look at some of the menus first. So if I hit this guy left, you can see a maximum RPM. Now I haven't spun it up yet, and I've got a different sensor in here. I'm running a RevMax sensor that's modified. Once again, I'll show you how to do that, and the sensor readout is never really quite right. If you were running a regular RPM sensor, a magnetic RPM sensor, then this here would show you 0 RPM. But just because I've got a bit of a redneck hack mod in here, it shows that. Next, this shows you how many hours have been recorded on it. So I got 6 hours, 18 minutes, 44, I guess it'd be seconds or something. I don't know. So a lot of time on this unit. I've got a good amount of time on this one. Next, the OLED, yeah, just leave it on saver. This means it'll save your battery. This is a nitro, so the operation mode is gyro plus governor. If you were running electric, you could just go over here and change it to gyro and throttle, and it might save some battery usage. Next is some really cool features, Roll Max and Elevator Max. This is really, really cool. So what you're going to do is, let's say if you go up and you want, let's say you have 2 identical machines. Let's say you have 2 identical I don't know, T-Rex 600s, whatever. So let's say you want them to fly exactly the same, but you have maybe different servos in there. What you can do is you can go up and let's say you start to do stationary rolls. Let's say it starts rolling at 360 degrees per second. That means every second you're rolling one time. Wonderful. So you could do it in a stationary roll, and then you could hit it in a stationary forward flip, and then you could come back and read these numbers. The roll max is as fast as you rolled, and the elevator max is as fast as you flip. So you can look at these numbers and you can set two models up identically. Maybe the numbers might be different, maybe the servos are different, maybe even if it's a 90 and a 50 and you want your cyclics to always feel the same in the air, you can use this. So I actually use this at XFC for my machine, my number 1 and my number 2. I made sure these numbers were the same so that both models flew exactly the same. Now we're back here to the home screen. So let's look into our other screens here. So as you can see, we're going to hit this button to advance. I've got my really high-end poker. So I've got rudder, aileron, elevator, swash, governor, and S-bus. Okay. So let's start with the S-bus. Last time in the YouTube video I really never got into it that much, but I'm starting to use things differently now, so let me show you what I've done here. So as I previously mentioned, I've got my switch glow into channel 3 right here. The switch glow needs to plug into a channel. Now the way it comes is it's aileron, elevator, and I believe pitch as channels 1, 2, or no, aileron, elevator, throttle, which is stock in your function in your radio. So what I've done is I've actually moved my S-bus to channel 3. So simply all I did in my radio was I went to function and I went to channel 3 and I moved it from throttle to auxiliary 8 or something like that. Just some auxiliary number. Then what I did was I went in here to the S-bus, and you can see aileron still channel 1, elevator still channel 2, throttle I moved that to channel 12. So in my function I went and moved that on the function channel in the radio, I moved it to channel 12. Just something out of the way. And then you can see nothing else is channel 3. Nothing at all. So all I did was I went into my radio for channel 3, I set that to aux 8, set that to switch B, and when I hit it, my switch glow happened. My switch glow works. This is exactly how our Dalcon system works too with the night lights. Flip the switch, done, starts the sequence. So you're gonna, those are the kind of things where you're gonna need to move your channels around, and that's how you can do it very easily using this S-bus menu. But other than that, I have never touched this ever before, other than to just move some channels around. So let's get out of that and let's go into a basic rudder setup first. Rudder gyro, wonderful. So let's hit this in basic. The servo type 760 is my frame rate. Yep. GY direction normal. You just want to make sure that in the setups episode number 3 we showed you how to make sure that your rudder servo is compensating in the correct direction. So I can see that it is back and forth here. My servo limits, I can set it back and forth, 135. I tend to like limits anywhere in between no less than 100, certainly not. But usually around 110 is good. I mean, even up to 135 here is fine. We've got a lot of throw on this whiplash tail, which is why the numbers are so high. Flight mode, 3D mode. If you're not flying in a scale body, put it in 3D mode. And that's it. Rudder basic, done. That's all I've ever done in there. Once again, I set my rudder neutral position when I flip that switch F back up. I make sure my horn's perfectly straight, and then I make sure I have that 7-degree right rudder offset, just as we showed you in episode 3 over a year ago. None of that's ever changed. So now we're gonna go into the next one. Let's go to aileron basic. Aileron basic and elevator basic hardly have any things in here. Aileron direction, normal. This is where I'm going to set the, I gotta refresh my memory here. The aileron direction, normal and reverse, is going to set your compensation directions. So let's say once I'm all done setting up, I lean the model to the right. I want the swash plate to tilt left. If it doesn't do that, this is where I'm going to reverse that right here, as I just found out. And then here it shows me just like an overview of my gains and whatnot. I really don't need to touch that. And mode is CMT. CMT is what comes stock. This allows you to switch between normal mode and heading hold mode, which is what you want to do. So that's aileron basic. Great. Elevator basic, same thing. So you've got your elevator, this is your compensation direction once again. Meaning if I lean the nose right, or if I lean the nose forward and it compensates back, perfect, that's what we want. If it's not like that, then you use this, you go from normal to reverse, and it's done. So, CMT mode, just the same. Great. Now we're going to go into your swash plate menu. This is where is all the interesting stuff. So we're still in basic menu here. So my swash plate type, 120, I have 120 CCPM, perfect. 1520, this is the frame rate on the servos that I'm running. I'm running brushless 255 high voltage servos from Futaba. Stepped up to 8 volts, just unregulated through my reactor, and it's a kick-ass setup. It just works really well. Heli size 600, 700. Yep, it's a 90 size. If you're running a T-Rex 450 or a I don't know, Logo 500 or something, you'd want to go into the other one. It'll say 450 to 500 or below. Flight mode 4, you can select numbers here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just right here. You can select through them. If you select through the flight numbers, as you get to a higher number, it gives you less expo and a faster reactions. So if you're just learning to hover, maybe 1, 2, 3 is right for you. If you're into 3D, I recommend 4 to 5. I have always stuck with 4. 4 has worked really well for me because my flying, I do both big stuff and both tight stuff on the deck. So my flying tends to work really well with that number 4. So now we're going to get into the next one. So this is aileron reverse, elevator reverse, and pitch reverse. So I'm just going to show you here. When I reverse one, this is your actual servo reverse here. So when you get your servos plugged in, let's just say if your swash is not going up and down correctly, this is where you're going to individually reverse those servos to make your swash plate and everything operate in the right direction. So once you have all your servos working as they should, up is down, up is up, down is down, your collective is working correctly, your cyclic is working correctly. If everything's working fine, done, you're wonderful. Now let's say if you give forward and the swash plate leans back, you're going to go into your radio and you're going to hit the servo reverse for channel 2, which is elevator. That's where you're going to reverse those types of things. So your pitch reversing, aileron reversing, and elevator reversing will all be done in your actual radio to get it to move in the correct direction. We're going to keep going here. Now this is the neutral, this is sub-trim. So even guys like me use sub-trim. Aileron, elevator, and pitch. I'm not using too much, so 58's the most that I'm using. On the Whiplash we're using these, I'm using these car horns that come from Futaba. They're really, really beefy for our direct CCPM, and because of that I can't exactly dial in exactly where I'd like to. So I've put in some sub-trim, and it works just fine. There's nothing wrong with using sub-trim. If you're an FAI guy and you hate me now, sorry. Okay, now we're going to go into our rate. Aileron rate, elevator rate, and pitch rate. This is all your, this is like setting your endpoints in any other, if you were flying CCPM back in the, or this is like adjusting your swash rate, or adjusting your endpoints, or anything like that. The rates are only controlled from the 750. Now you can put it on a dual rate, but I really recommend doing everything here. So let's say if I'm out flying and my roll isn't fast enough. Bam! I'm going to go up to the aileron rate and I'm going to press the plus button, bump it from 62 maybe to 65, 66. And that will increase my aileron roll rate. I can then do the same for the elevator, the flip rate, and as well for the pitch rate. This is right here what sets everything. So all you have to do is land it, go into this menu, and you're done. Now there's the swash ring. Usually I leave this at 100. You can just peg your cyclic stick to the corner and back it off until the swash doesn't bind, but normally it doesn't bind right here on the bench. So 100 is usually fine for everybody. Now, here's the new this is what's in the new update. This is the pure one in compensation. So there's phase equalization, and there's also rotational equalization. Now I just tend to turn both of them on. If you're running an electric, it's good to tell your even if you're not running your governor mode, it's good to go into your governor and tell it what head speed you're running, because if it knows what head speed you're running, this phase equalization and rotational equalization will work a lot better. The rotational equalization is just to turn pirouette and compensation on, and the phase equalization works based on the head speed that's in there. So because this is nitro, it knows what head speeds I'm running, it helps out. I can't say how much, I really don't know, but it helps out with your pirouette and compensation. So we're going to turn both of those guys on. Now I'm going to go into my my direction of the pirouette and compensation. So right now what it's done is it's leaned my swash plate back. Now when I rotate it 180 degrees, so let's say the nose is facing the other direction now, I still want it to give a swash plate command in that same vector. So if you can imagine, if you pick up your helicopter and start dancing with it and walk around in a circle, you want the swash plate to always be pointing in the same direction. So let's say if it points at the back of your garage, for instance, and you start pirouetting around in a circle, you always want your swash plate to point towards the back of your garage. If it's not right, then click here and click the normal button and make it in the right direction of the compensation. Tracking, we leave that at 0. That's some fine adjustment, and the hysteresis, we put that at 16. That's where it comes stock, and that's where Matt, Kyle, myself, some of the other beta testers, it's really working well at 16. This is going to keep your model completely level during any sort of pirouetting and collective move together. So that's swash plate basic. Now we're going to go into the governor portion. So we're going to go into governor basic here. So I've set my head speeds. I've got 1570 in normal, 1850 in idle up 1, and 1940 in idle up 2. I just set them right from the radio as I showed you before. Done. Whenever I want to change the head speeds, I only change it in the radio. Gear ratio 8.27 to 1. This is what we're running in the Whiplash. The servo type, it's a 1520. The frame rate on the servo is a 1520. I'm running the same servos on everything. Stick switch. This is where you're going to program where your governor actually turns on. Now I believe that it comes right out of the factory at 30%. Yeah. 29% it's off, 30% it's on. So anytime your stick on your throttle is above 30%, bam, it's going to turn on your governor. So here I went into idle up 1, and I'm moving my stick all the way up and down. It shows, 100%, a little bit above due to trimming and endpoints and whatnot. So it's just going to show my throttle percentage. So now I'm going to go into the next menu. The on and off switch, I inhibit that. I just like my governor to be on always. I never turn off my governor. It's just how I do it. Battery fail safe, I don't really get into that much either. Just charge your packs. Yaw compensation, so this shows that my rotor disc spins clockwise from the top. Yes, I know that. Most helicopters do. I think Vario doesn't, maybe 1 or 2 others. So next I set my idle. So limit here, I put my stick all the way to the bottom. I press the button. Then I go all the way up to high. I press the button, right, and done. So here I can go into test. Test, it's at idle now. It's at high, idle, high. Hit it again. Idle, high, idle, high. Good. So I can tell that everything's working. Next is my sensor. Now once again, I'm using a hacked together Spectrum sensor modified to work with Futaba, so this doesn't work here, but I just know that it actually works. When you're using the actual magnet sensor or even the Futaba backplate sensor, or actually the Futaba backplate sensor, still the way it works, it'll give you some sort of reading like this. If you're using the magnetic sensor, you want to make sure you get a number anywhere, I believe it's above 85. So 97 is the perfect number. That's about the max you can get. So make sure you've got a really good reading on your magnet. Make sure it's nice and close. And this max rate here is really cool. You can spin it around, and the maximum number that it ever got to is that. So you could just hit it with your starter. You don't need to sit there and find the sweet spot. That's the maximum number it ever got to. And that's it, Governor Basic. So that's all your basic setup. This is everything that I use. I showed in the YouTube video how to go into the advanced setups, and I'm going to show you that here, but just so you know, I have stopped going into any advanced menus, and I don't adjust anything in advanced menus anymore. But if you guys want to be curious, I'm going to show you what those are right now, briefly. So let's go into advanced setup. And now we're getting into advanced setup here. Now I'm going to just briefly go through them. To tell you the truth, I don't even know what a lot of these do. If one pops up that I know, I'll briefly mention what it does. So here's what we're going to do. Now, I'm not even going to show you advanced rudder setup because the 750 rudder just absolutely kicks ass. I have never even pressed the button for advanced menu, and I don't even want to. So if you feel like it sucks, then you can go in there yourself. I'll show you aileron. Aileron and elevator will be the same, so we'll just do aileron real quick. So to go into advanced, we're going to hold that button right there. So we're in the expert menu now. So now we go back to here, and this is how we're going to go into our, oh sorry, it's on this side. We're going to go through the advanced menu. So like I said, I don't know a lot of these, but if one pops up that I know, I'll be like, hey, this is cool. So exponential, this is your expo. This is actually one thing that you might want to go into. If you leave your expo at 0 on the radio, right now it comes at -10. You can always go in here and drop it down. Remember, with Futaba, if you make it -20, it's going to feel softer around center. So you could go into here and do that. This is actually one exception where I might go into here. This is your delay in and delay out. Yeah, I'm sure that affects how it flies somehow. Your stop delay, yeah, that's probably when you release your stick back to center. This is how hard it stops or whatnot. AVCS dampening. Now this is something that's pretty interesting here. AVCS dampening will help out your overall control feel. The higher the number is, the more Flybarless like it will fly. If you move this number, now I can't really condone doing this if you move it past 100, so I'm in 101 right now. I think I tapped it up maybe once or twice just to play with it. It might get into a thing to where when your head speed gets low, it might want to fight you a lot and get into a weird oscillation, so I can't condone it, but if you want to try it, the higher the number it is, the more Flybarless like it will feel. The more let's say synthetic it'll feel. It'll smooth things out a little bit, but you're going to notice a trade-off, so play with that one at your own risk. Next, control feel. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Rate consistency. Rate consistency here, the higher that is or the lower that is, I forget which way it is, that will help out with, let's say if you do a straight aileron roll stationary, and let's say it rolls at 360 degrees per second, let's say you fly hauling ass and then roll, it's going to roll faster. That's the way the 750 works. We like that. I like that. It's a very dynamic feel to it. The higher number this is, that will get those numbers closer together. Angular rate, nope. iGain, this is a new one. iGain will help you with tracking. iGain, the higher your iGain number is, the better it's going to feel in straight lines. The better it's going to feel more linear. Now I'm telling you the truth, I really haven't played with these, so really play with these things at your own risk. Maybe just go 5-10% at a time. If you're really not liking the way the 750 flies, you can go into these expert menus and play around and get yourself into trouble. Delay gain, don't know. Sensor mode middle, sure. And this is the one for you guys. So when you go in here and mess everything up, you can reset your aileron or your elevator, because to tell you the truth, it really works just fine. Like, it really works fine. So here we're gonna go out of expert mode. Wonderful. So basic, now we're gonna go into swash expert. Okay, probably a bunch more other menus that I've never seen. Okay, pitch to aileron. Okay, these are actually somewhat useful. They put it in here. For those of you who have flown for those of you who had CCPM with a Futaba radio before the Flybarless era, they had this in there. Pitch to aileron, pitch to elevator, aileron to pitch, and elevator to pitch. These are going to help out with your fine-tuning controls. Now, way back when before we had Flybarless, it was really important to go through all these things and set everything up correctly. To tell you the truth, to be honest, the more I play with these and the more I feel like I've got it right on the bench, the worse it flies. So if you know what you're doing in here, I'll let you have at it and try it with yourself. But to tell you the truth, it flies way better just to leave everything at 0. It allows the Flybarless thing to do what it needs to be. This screen, I don't know. Not sure. I'm not sure. Don't know. Speed compensation. This has to do with a tick-tocking motion. So if you're tick-tocking back and forth and you feel like it's slow or fast, you can adjust this. I've adjusted it in the past and it never really ended up well. So 50 is great. Swash rotation. I believe this is where you can offset. Let's say if your phasing is off, you can slightly adjust it there, but it's just way better to do it mechanical. So as you can see, there's a lot of different menus in here if you're really off or if something's really crazy. Next is a menu you might remember from my YouTube video: pitch 0, pitch low, and pitch high. All you're going to do is you're going to put your stick at 0 when it says 0 and you press the positive. Stick high, you put your stick up, you press the positive. Pitch low, you put your stick down, you press positive. I have stopped doing that since this is what they recommend to do in the manual. I've stopped doing it and I have not noticed any flying differences. Really, I have noticed nothing. So I don't even go into this anymore. And then once again, the all-important reset for when you go in here and feel like you're doing something really cool and it doesn't work, you put it back to here and you'll notice it flies much better in stock form. So we're going to get out of expert here. Lastly, we'll go into governor. This one's kind of cool. I've played around with this actually. Governor mode, work mode. I've started recently playing around with it in limiter mode. Limiter mode allows it, instead of it being a governor, it's a throttle limiter, kind of like a rev max. What's the benefit of this? Well, I've noticed that it's faster. The limiter mode we haven't played with, we haven't really tweaked too much, but I've noticed it's much faster. So all you do is you set your throttle curve to 100%, put it in limiter mode and try it. You might actually like that. And then the rest, not response time, your gains, optimize, rev up delay, and rev down delay. These are different numbers to where you can play with these if your governor isn't kicking in fast enough. So it'd be your start delay and your rev up delay. You can play with those numbers to get your governor to kick in more. The rest of this stuff, battery fail-safe, voltage, and once again the reset button for when you mess everything up. So those are the advanced menus. Sorry, I'm not the expert here, but to tell you the truth, when I've seen people play with the advanced menus, they make it fly worse. So I run a complete stock setup. I go in there and adjust like one number or two, but it's really not that necessary. Sometimes I do it just to play with it and see what I can come up with for you guys. So that's advanced settings on the CGY750. Now we're going to go into updating your CGY750. Now, the CGY750 came with software version 1.00. That's the initial release. This is what I had been working on with Matt Bodos, Kyle Stacy, a few other guys, Steve Helms. We've been working on that for some time. That's the final version we came out with. Now, Futaba has since released another version, 1.1, I believe it is, which has pre-wedding compensation and some other things in there. So now I'm going to show you how you're going to update it. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need this guy. You're going to need this guy right here. This is called the Futaba CGY2 programmer. This is the same one used for the CGY701, CGY520. This is how we've been updating all of these Futaba devices for a while. Now, it's not the best interface in the world, but it does the job. It works pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this into my computer. I'm going to go to the Futaba website, and I'm going to download the latest drivers and make sure that the CGY2 is connected. And when that's connected, it's got a green light on the LED. So now here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the connector that comes out of the CGY2 programmer. It's just a regular plug. And I'm going to unplug my S-bus cable from the receiver. And I'm going to plug in this into the connector. Just like so. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my 750 first, just to show you what version I'm at right now. So right now I'm version 1.1H. 1.1H was just a test version that a few of us beta testers got and never got released. So I set it back to this so you can see when it updates. So I'm at 1.1H, wonderful. So what I'm going to do is, my radio isn't even on for this, I don't even need my radio on. I'm going to press and hold this forward button and I'm going to let go. Now it says update ready. Wonderful. So I've got a green light on the CGY750. It says update is ready. Let me wake my computer up here. Now I'm going to go into version 1.1. So this is the first public update. I'm going to double click that. I'm going to click the update button. And then it tells you to write. I'm going to press write. CGY750 will be updated. Are you sure? Yep. So I click yep, and now it says it's writing. And now there's a status indicator on the computer that shows that it's writing. And you know that it's writing because the LED is now flashing between like a yellow and a red color. So we will let that do its thing. Now, another thing that I want to mention while it's writing is the fact that the power in my setup is being delivered through my reactor. This is being delivered through my servos into the 750. So my 750 powers my receiver. So if you guys are powering your receiver from your battery, and then the receiver is giving the S-Bus its voltage through the S-Bus cable, right here you're going to need to apply power to your 750. So you can simply unplug the rudder channel and plug in a NiCad or something like that. So keep in mind, if you don't have, like if you turn it on and nothing happened, that's because your power is usually delivered from your receiver. Now for you guys who are really 3D happy with maybe 8717s and there's some really high current servos, you really want to power this 750 as much as you can. You want to give it as much power as you can. So you're going to give it power maybe through, if you're on electric, you'll give it power through that throttle channel. Even electric, you can power through the RSEN channel. So you really want to make sure this thing gets a lot of power. So we're going to fast forward here until it's done downloading. Alright, and the 750 is nearing its completion of the update to the 1.1 software. So it says it's writing, and then it will tell us when it is all done. Cool, the update succeeded. Wonderful, success, great. So now I'm just gonna turn it off, unplug it, and I'm gonna plug my cable back in. And when I plug it in now, get in there. Okay, now when I turn on the 750, haha, 1.10, wonderful. So we have updated the 750 successfully, great. So that's how you're gonna do it, that's all you need. Once again, you and your buddies can pitch in, get a CGY750. You're only gonna need it maybe once every month or twice a year, maybe. If you're at an event, you could always stop by like the Habaco booth or something if they're around. I'm sure, check with any of us reps, we might have them around too. So that's how we're updating it. Now we're moving on to the next segment. So now that everything has been set up on the bench, I've got my tail going left and right. I've got maximum travel on that. I've got it in the center to where it's offset to the right just slightly. My CCPM is set up. I've got my servos at neutral. I've got it to where there's neutral, everything's lined up in the center. Let's turn it on and make sure everything's good. So I'm going to turn the helicopter on. That's the rudder. And the swash plate done. Very, very quick startup. So I'm going to go here to center stick. Once again, you can see my horns are level, my anti-rotation is level, swash is level, everything is wonderful. Now, what we're going to do is, the first thing I want to show you is the difference between that normal mode and heading hold. So here's my full range. Let's put the swash plate in the center, and then I'll stick it to one side. So I give it a forward left command. Now you can see it didn't quite return to center, not quite. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this switch D, which is our idle up 3. Remember, we put that to normal mode, and you can see here it's going to pop right into normal mode. Just like that. Now I go to center stick. This is where you're going to put your swash plate leveler if you want to. You're going to stick your swash plate leveler on here, level it in the middle, up and down. This is where you're going to get everything nice and level. I don't use a leveler. I really never have felt the difference when I've used one versus when I haven't. When I adjust it in the air, it works just fine. So this is where you can set up all your pitches. If you feel like you need more pitch, you can go into that swash plate menu, adjust your swash, the swash plate pitch, aileron, and elevator rates under that basic swash menu. So now we're going to do final check over, and we're going to go fly. I'm going to show you what to look for when we go fly. Here's a quick tip for you guys. Those of you running the CGY750, if you're unable to get a backplate sensor, if you don't feel like using a magnet sensor, there's a solution for you. I've been using these RevMax backplate sensors for a long time. They come with the Spectrum AR7100R receiver. I've been using these especially when I used to use the MultiGov a lot. They really work great. They're easy to set up. So here's what we did. There's a little mod that you can do to make it work with the 750. So as you can see in here, it's kind of busted up. It lived through a crash one time. All I did in here was you separate all three wires out, the black, the red, and the ground. And the signal. So the black, red, and white, you separate them out. You're then going to take a 1K resistor and you're going to jump that between the red and the white wire. It's kind of yellow. The red and the yellow wire. And you're going to make sure the gold side of the resistor is towards the yellow wire. I've got a picture here. It's very low res. I think I got it from RC Heli magazine. I think Ray Stacy sent it to me one time. I've tried this, and even though on the 750 it says, if you saw, it was like 97% the whole time, it works beautifully. You can just, when you click in, you're sure that it's working. And it's on the side here because the new backplates from OS have this hole in here for their backplate sensors. Now I just haven't gotten one. I think they sent me one, but I just haven't put it in because this is working and I've been kind of busy. So anyway, this is everything you need to know about doing these backplate sensors. So now we're out at the field. We got the 750 all set up and everything's ready to go. So here's what we're going to do. Make sure all your trims are set to 0. Once again, we've got our idle up. We've got our switch back here to go from normal mode to heading hold mode for the rudder. And here we've got the normal heading hold for the gyro itself, for the flight control itself. So the first thing I do, turn your helicopter on. Wait for it to initialize. 4 tail kicks. And then 4 swash kicks. Always triple check that the direction here is compensating. When I lean it forward, it leans back. When I go back, it leans forward. And then I go aileron 2. I check this every single flight, In some of our beta test versions, we've had it to where it didn't initialize. So it's always a good habit to practice. We have some really cool thunderstorms coming in, so hopefully the whiplash won't become a lightning rod. So we're gonna start it up and show you what to look out for. So here we go. Okay, so we're ready to fly. So the first thing I'm going to do is track the tail. We're going to pick it up in a hover. I'm going to pick everything up in heading hold mode. Everything's going to be in heading hold. Then I'm going to get it into a hover in my idle up head speed, so either 1850 or 1940, either 1 or 2. And then I'm going to flick this back left switch into normal mode. I'm then going to watch the tail, see which way, if it drifts left or right. I'm going to adjust the tail rod accordingly to make this happen. This is going to help your 750 hold that much better. So let's do that first. So I'm pulling up, and then my idle up right now. So I'm in idle up 1. It's a good head speed, everything's solid, locked in, very good performance. So now I'm going to flick my back left switch, and we're going to see where the tail goes. So here we go. So that's it right there. It's locked in perfectly. Wonderful. So now I flick back into heading hold. Now, when I flick the switch, if I were to flick it and it were to go like this, a very solid left pirouette, what I would do is I would come in and I would hit hold, and then I would go up to my rudder and I would give it some right rudder. So what I would do is I would compensate. Since it pirouetted to the left, I'd compensate, give it right rudder. I've got mine set up already because I like to follow my own advice from time to time, and it's holding. So this is why I get such good tail performance. If you don't do this, your 750 will not work as well as it can, I guarantee it. If you're having tail blowing out issues, always triple check the tracking of your tail. It'll be much better. So now we're going to check the tracking on the swash plate. So I'm in heading hold that time, okay? So now I'm going to lift up, go to idle up 1, and I'm going to flick the switch down into normal mode. Then from there I'm going to adjust my trims to get it to hover perfectly hands off. As you can see today we have some storms coming in, but there's absolutely no wind. This is a perfect time to do it. If you ever get out there and it's your first flight and it's windy, don't even bother doing this until it's calm. So let's try that. So I'm going to take off and I'm going to go into idle up 1 or idle up 2. I'm taking off. I'm in 1. So now I hit. Oh, that was cool. So now I flicked into normal mode and you can see it's drifting back a little bit. All right, that's no problem. So I adjust my elevator trim so that I can get it to where it's hands off like this in normal mode. I'm in normal mode right now, okay? That's pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it back and I'm going to land it in normal mode. So I hit hold. Okay, so now I'm in normal mode. Cameraman, if you could zoom in here. So I'm in normal mode, and you could also see that I had my trim set to -7. That's where it ended up hovering. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my normal mode, and from here I'm going to flick the switch 3 times and keep it up when I finish. So it's going to be just like this. Done. So now that program, the 750, that's its 0 spot now. Now it knows exactly where it's 0. Now I just pick it up and go fly. So I check my up, I check my down. As you can see, it's pretty straight. That's hands off right there. And go straight up. That's straight up. That's hands off as well. That's why you don't really need to mess with that pitch to aileron, elevator to pitch, all that stuff. As you can see, the pirouetting compensation now is great. I can lock it into a pirouette, one hand, and I can do this with one hand, and it'll pretty much stay in the same spot. So we've got pirouetting compensation. Now you just have to adjust for the feel of it. Now you can start playing with the numbers, like the control feel, or that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 number. Just make it fly how you want it to. If my rates weren't good enough, I could adjust my rates in that swash menu. But really, if you do your bench setup right, your first flight, you could easily do, your flying however you wanted to. So one thing I forgot to mention, your rudder control, your rudder pirouette speed is controlled in your endpoints. So we would land and we'd go into your endpoints and adjust your rudder from there. Your aileron rate, your flip rate, and your pitch rate are all controlled from your swash menu. We got the governor set in, everything's working, you can hear my governor's working. So that's a crash course and a flight of a 750. If you want to see the way it flies, just look up any Flybarless video that I've had since October, any of my demos, anything like that. But that's it, there's not too much to it. So that's how we get the 750 dialed in the air. So the last thing I want to show you is a very quick description and advice on how to set your gains on the 750. So we've got our gains channel in here. I showed you guys those things earlier. Now the gain, it's I can show you, but it's also just as easy to explain it. The ideal thing that you want for your gain, the gain is what it's going to be is when it feels like it needs an input, a gain is going to be how quickly it throws an input in. So if you have a high gain, that's why you have that hunting, because it keeps wanting to give an input, but it's not ready for one yet. So that's why you get such a high, that's why if there's a high gain, it becomes jittery. If you have a low gain, it feels sluggish, so you need to find somewhere in between. So here's what I normally do. Rudder is very simple. You guys have done that in the past. Just go into a big stall turn. If your rudder starts to kick, your rudder gain's too high. Bring it down till it doesn't kick. Usually a funnel's a great way to tell. If your tail's wobbling in a funnel, that's about the most amount of load you'll get to where it'll kick. Second, the aileron gain. The aileron gain and the elevator gain, I kind of crank them up together. Usually I'll bump the elevator gain up just a little bit. Aileron gain, you'll fly around and you might come into a hover and the whole thing will be sitting there doing this number. If it's sitting there doing this number, just back it down a little bit and you're good to go. Just back it off so that it's not wobbling at all. Right now I just flew that at 65% and that worked just fine. Elevator, I found that you can fly around just as well. Another great way to tell is just straightforward flight, take your hands off. Straightforward flight, if you take your hands off, as long as you're not bogging your motor to death, you might notice it'll start to get this little number, just a little bit, it'll be a quick sort of porpoise thing. It'll still go straight, but it'll just be wobbling. So you just want to take that one down from like 70 to, I don't know, 68, 65, and that would probably do it. So that's how you adjust your gains on the CGY750. So thank you all for watching episode 16, the Futaba CGY750. So hopefully we showed you a little bit of what the unit's about, how to set it up, how to update it, how to do advanced, awesome, cool things, a little bit of flying characteristics, a little bit of flying setup. So check out the Futaba website, you know. If you've got it there, that's the place where you're going to find updates for it, either for your transmitter or for the 750. There may be one coming towards the end of the year here. But so far this unit rocks. We got thunderstorms coming in, so we're going to call it quits. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time. What you making, Ray?
37. I am making the highly technical, super advanced, beyond belief viewfinder
With the camo duct tape.
with the camo duct tape, so it will be incognito.
So you're working in
37.
metric or standard units?
I actually switch back and forth depending on which side of the straight edge I pick up. See, now I have to work at 37, but if I picked it up like this, well then I'd be working in inches. So in my mind, with the help of Rick, I convert on the fly. Thanks, Rick.
Just wonderful.
You're the man. What's half of 37 again?
A lot.